Hi everybody, my name is John and this is a new channel that I'm starting based on a new property that we just recently purchased, and the channel is called Bluegrass Permaculture. So this video is just sort of an introductory video to give you guys an idea of what the property looks like, and over time, over the next several years, I'll be converting this property into a permacultural food forest. So you can see the house is a ranch style house. It's on 3/4 of an acre. And right now, most of that is grass. We're gonna get rid of all the grass. So I'll point out a few things just initially as we're walking around the house. Here's a few plants that I put in recently. Some astilbe for pollinators, some coreopsis, which I believe is a nitrogen fixer. I'm still learning about forest gardening and permaculture, and I can't remember what this other flowering plant is. You can also see that there's several maples on the property, which after I start installing fruit trees and nut trees, those will become valuable firewood. For now, they'll be shade crops. On the corner here, we have some forsythia, which I absolutely love. It'll provide a lot of beautiful yellow flowers early in the spring. There's also quite a bit of milkweed, which will leave some for the pollinators and the butterflies, but a lot of it will be removed. It's an invasive species and just kind of goes everywhere. I've experienced this at rental properties that I've lived at before. And you can hear our neighbors' dogs barking right now. Probably hear them a lot in the future. And here we have some elderberry that I planted recently. I got a deal on it at Lowe's. And a second elderberry over there. They actually need 2 of them in order to produce fruit. So one is a black lady and the other is a black beauty. There is a ton of purple coneflower, also known as echinacea, on the property. We'll keep a lot of that. The bees really love it. And eventually I would really like to get into beekeeping as well. We can see this other little sort of gem hidden in here, another coreopsis that I didn't know about until I started watering and mowing the lawn and things like that. Back here we have some large shade trees. And I should also mention that my partner and I are both artists. So this area back here will eventually become a small studio building for our artwork. Here we have a weeping mulberry tree, which the previous owner mentioned never really flowered or fruited or anything. So I'm not sure what we're going to do with it yet. For now, we'll just use it for chop and drop for mulch. Some yellow coneflower, and again, more of the milkweed. So moving around the back of the house, which faces north, we have a beautiful lilac here, right on the corner of the house. We'll also be having a fence installed that will come off of this existing fence and come to the corner. We have 2 beautiful boys, which you can see here, watching me out the window, wondering what I'm doing. And they are both escape artists and love to chase rabbits and other animals. So the fence should be installed in about another 4 weeks. Right now we're just at the tail end of July. Sunday, I think, is August 1st. The house has all of this really beautiful stonework on the corners, and we have a beautiful fireplace inside. I'll probably provide some more information later on about that. Over here we have an Oregon ash tree, which has been sort of cut down and then is starting to produce leaves and branches again. I will probably end up sort of thinning this and using it for firewood and letting it grow little bits here and there and harvesting it, which is called coppicing. So you cut a tree down, you let it grow some more, just as we're seeing here, and then you harvest it for small bits of firewood and stakes for the garden and things like that. Here you can see a fire pit that, you know, we've just kind of laid it out for now. It still needs some work, and we're still trying to figure out the perfect location, and the existing garden shed from the previous owner behind it. And again, another maple here. She really liked her maples. Eventually this entire backyard is going to change in its character. We'll have a pergola with a sort of eating area with a Korean grill in the center of the table, and also a pond in front of the willow tree. It's a beautiful, beautiful willow tree, and our boys would just love to swim in the pond. And also, permaculture is really sort of about diversity. So by adding more diversity to the area, we're going to make everything healthier, which is part of the reason we're getting rid of the lawn. We can see a couple pine trees back here. They don't really do anything for me or for my partner. So those will come down. And we're still working on developing a plan for the property as far as, you know, where the orchard will go and where other things, where the beehives will go, where the composting will go. But I'm expecting the pine trees to provide some really wonderful acidic mulch for blueberries, which is something I've really struggled with growing, and I'm excited to really learn about growing. Okay, so we approach the back of the house here. One of the other really wonderful things that the previous owner did was really cultivate a relationship with a lot of songbirds, native songbirds, and other types of birds. So here you can see a bird bath, which we will keep, at least until the pond is in. You can see some volunteer tomatoes, or tomatoes, depending on where you're from. And also some strawberries that one of my colleagues had allowed me to come to his property and cull through his strawberries, which were severely overgrown. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I try to do things. And here we have a really interesting plant. I can't remember the technical name for it, but the common name is cardinal vine. And the university that I work at, their mascot is called the Cardinals. And so this stuff grows crazy. And we can see what's left of one of its beautiful red flowers here. The flowers only last for about a day, and they sort of pop out here and there. You can see it's a climber. So having just moved a couple of weeks ago, we had a couple extra tomato cages, so we're training this one up on that right now. Eventually we'd like to have some sort of artistic structural trellis. And that's something I don't think that I've mentioned. So my partner and I are both artists. She's a photographer, and I'm a sculptor and glassblower. So I work at a university teaching sculpture and glassblowing here in central Indiana. And then here we can see a whole bunch of things in buckets. So we moved recently and we had a garden at the old place. My landlord asked us to remove it when we left. I've had a garden at pretty much every place I've lived, with the exception of the 3 years in graduate school, since I was, maybe 25. So I took as much as I could, the strawberries that we saw earlier, and here we have some tomatoes in buckets. There's also some lemon trees that we're growing from seeds, just from lemons that we use in cooking, and then also some jalapenos and a few more strawberries in the back there. And then we can see there's a really beautiful stand of sunflowers over here, which we're going to leave. We're just going to let them self-sow with seed. They're really beautiful. They're great for the pollinators. The birds love them. And it's one of the really wonderful things that the previous owner did. We'll talk about some of the other plants in the garden later. You can see my compost pile behind the willow. It's not really ideal right now. I'd like to find a better location for it. But that was the one sort of open area tucked away in the back of the yard. Eventually, I would like to cover the lawn with wood chips, which we'll compost, and figure out something different as far as composting goes. Okay, so we can see another flower garden here, which has a lot of interesting things in it. Really great for pollinators, really great for some other uses, some nitrogen fixers and things like that, and a bunch of weeds. A volunteer corn here. That's one of the things the previous owner used to feed the squirrels and the birds, so we have it growing all over the yard. So that will eventually get redone. And then we have these wonderful grasses growing on the property. And I think they're going to be really great for chop and drop mulch, which I'll talk about in a future episode. And then we have a couple forsythia here, and then a couple of more maple trees, some lamb's ear, which is really a wonderful plant. We have a lot of lamb's ear and a lot of mint on the property, and that's really wonderful for me because I lived with my grandparents when I was very young for a couple of years, and they taught me so much about gardening. Really, that's where my interest comes from with gardening. And the burning bushes, we're going to take those out. Those will become chop and drop as well. But I'm really excited for this plant, which is kind of wild and crazy right now, and I'll likely leave it like that. It's actually a mock orange, which produces really, really beautiful and fragrant flowers for the pollinators. Some more grasses, and then a tulip tree, which is actually the state tree of Indiana, which is really wonderful since we're in central Indiana.